Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's 30 Minutes program. We have a really, really good program for you today. It's all about Washington, and it's all about right here in Weakley County, West Tennessee. A man who has served in Congress, state representative, and he's served our country, being in the Navy. But right now, he's just enjoying life. That's former Congressman John Tanner, a friend of mine, and maybe yours as well. Congressman, first off, I've got to ask you, how many years now has it been from having to go to Washington? But you're still going to Washington, is that right?
I am, Paul. Betty and I still have our apartment on East Capitol Street, and I am still active in terms of some of the boards that I've served on. I'm chairman currently of the International Conservation Caucus Foundation Board, and we are interested in conservation, as the name implies. We have a lot going on in Africa, trying to keep the wildlife from being slaughtered by people. We have elephants, rhinoceros, and all the rest of it. But more importantly, over in Africa, we're doing a lot of work with national parks and trying to keep the national park system there, which is what the people have to really subsist on, alive and well. And then we're doing a lot of work in the Amazon, trying to keep them from cutting down all the trees. Because the Amazon is the lungs of the world.
Why are you still doing these kinds of things at the age of 81? Is that
81,
right?
Yeah. There's a poem that I like very much that I guess characterizes what I do, and it's called The Bridge Builder. And it's a long poem. I won't recite all of it now, but at the end of the poem, he's built this bridge across a creek that he crossed in the twilight. And if somebody asked him, said, why do you build this bridge here? Your journey will end at the close of the day. You never again will pass this way. Why build this bridge here? The poem goes, the builder lifts his old gray head, and the path I've come, he said, there follows after me today a youth who too must pass this way. This dream which has meant naught to me, to that lad may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim, my friend, I'm building this bridge for him. And I think that summarizes what I want to try to do with the time I have remaining.
You were born in Halls, Tennessee, is that right?
Halls, Tennessee, Army Air Base in September of 1944. My dad had already shipped out and went into France. Well, sometime D-Day plus about 20, sometime in June of 44. And my mother was living with her parents. He was a country doctor in Ridgely, Dr. Sumner's my middle name. And he took my mother to Halls because they had a B-15 Army Air Corps base then, as you know. It wasn't an Air Force, it was Army Air Corps. And they had a fairly big base in Halls, and they had an infirmary. And my mother stayed in that infirmary for 10 days, if you can believe it, when I was born. And I've got a copy of the bill the government gave her. It was $12.50. And that was for, I guess, her food. Because my dad being on active duty, it wouldn't have been a charge.
Let me get this straight. Your father, E.B. Tanner, correct?
That's right.
Stands for?
Emerson Beck.
Okay.
My grandson, Beck, who brought me over here today, unfortunately developed some macular degeneration. I don't like to drive out of town. His name for his great-grandfather.
Mm-hmm. So let me take this to a different... Did you move to Union City? Is that where you became...
My dad came back from Europe. He was in an engineering company. Still have an engineering National Guard company in Union City, the Army over there, and so he stayed after the war officially ended in Europe when Hitler committed suicide, last part of April and so forth. He stayed, but we went back to Ridgely, and we lived with my grandparents in Ridgely. And when my dad got home from Europe, and it was first part of 45, 46, latter part of 46, he came to Ridgely to get us, and we came on over here to Union City, actually, to where he went into business with his father, my grandfather, Walker Tanner.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad used to tell me, he said, I knew you weren't very smart. He said, I got home from Europe and went to Ridgely to pick you all up. And he would say, John, where's your dad? And he said, I'd go over and point to a picture of him on the coffee table. And he said, I was sitting right there in the room. He said, I said, well, hell, I didn't know who you were. I'd never seen you before in my life. They always told me the picture on the coffee table was your dad. That's all I knew. I thought it was a picture on the coffee table.
When did you and your family move back to Obion County in Union City specifically?
When he got home from the service in World War II, and we moved back to Union City, and I grew up there. We lived on Exchange Street.
Your family got involved with banking and insurance, is that correct? And then
right.
You became a lawyer at one time?
My grandfather had the insurance business, and then he was on the bank board, and they needed a savings loan. My grandfather started the old savings and loan in Union City during the Depression. And later on, my dad was in the insurance business in Union City, and then he went into the saving loan business plus insurance. And then I got out of the Navy. I was in the Navy for 4 years during the Vietnam era.
After you graduated from
after
university?
Law school at Knoxville.
Yeah. But I'm talking about high school first, because
Union City High School, and then Knoxville undergraduate, and then law school. A funny story: my great-grandmother, Walker Tanner's mother, was named Mamie Tanner. She lived to be 101, almost 102. And we had a birthday party for her when she was 100, which was in November of 1966.
Mm-hmm.
I was in law school in Knoxville. And we had a big cake, had 100 candles on it, made a big deal out of it, which it was a big deal. But she asked me, she said, John, what are you doing now? And I said, well, Grandmother, I'm in law school at the university in Knoxville. And without missing a beat, she went, ooh, that's a mighty poor calling. What can I say?
When did you make a decision that you wanted to be a state representative? That's just where you got into politics?
That's right, yeah. Well, it was 1976.
You had come home.
I got out of the Navy in October, October the 6th, 1972. I went in October 29th, 1968, and got out in October. 2 dates you don't forget, when you went in, when you get out.
Yeah.
And so I came back and went into the law practice. I'd been in the Navy JAG Corps doing court martials the first 3 years, and the last year I was at the 6th Naval District headquarters in Charleston doing claims for and against the government.
Were you married at this time?
Yeah, oh yeah. And we had both Elizabeth, our oldest, our daughter, and Portis, our son. They were both born while I was in the Navy, both at civilian hospitals, by the way. There's a story about Elizabeth. I went to Newport, Rhode Island on October the 29th, 1968. We got married in September of 67. And anyway, by September or October of 68, Betty Ann was pregnant with our first child, Elizabeth. And so she was 7 months pregnant, so we decided to leave her in Huntington with her parents. Billy Portis was her dad, and Dorothy Portis, her mother, because we didn't want to change obstetricians or doctors at 7 months. We thought we'd be better off. So I go to Newport. I tell young people this sometimes. I'm in Newport, Rhode Island, and I was eating lunch at the BOQ. That stands for Bachelor Officer Quarters. That's for people who didn't have their family with them. I'm eating lunch in the BOQ, and a runner, we called him, a sailor that was an E1, came up and handed me a note. I was a Lieutenant JG at the time in the JAG Corps. Said, Lieutenant, you have a message here to call the Red Cross. Well, I was a little bit worried. My grandmother had been pretty sick, my mother's mother, Miss Sumners. But anyway, I went to the payphone in what they call the day room where the television was, and put the quarter or dime or whatever it was, and phone rang, and Red Cross. I said, this is Lieutenant Tanner. I have a note here that you're trying to get in touch with me. She said, just a minute. He said, I do have a note here. Congratulations, Lieutenant. You had a little girl this morning at 7:05, something like that. And I tell young people that when I talk to the civics class in Union City Monday morning, I tell them that because at that time, 1968, there were no cell phones, there were no computers, there were no internet. In other words, they had no way to get in touch with me except through the Red Cross. And so it shows you how much times have changed. But anyway, so, and then Portis was born in Charleston when we were stationed down there.
Well, my question follows that. When did you make to...
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I lost track of...
But we're talking about you left the Navy, came back home.
Came back home, went to work.
And what were you doing when you came home?
Went to work with Elam, Glasgow, Tanner, and Acre law firm. Bill Acre, of course, Jim Glasgow Sr. and Tom Elam. Every
one of those close teams.
Oh, yeah. And so I worked there. And so in 76, Larry Bates, who was the state representative at the time, decided to run for Congress against Mr. Ed Jones in the Democratic primary in those days. And so and
he was the state representative at the time.
He was state representative, yeah. And I had been very active in the American Legion, believe it or not. When I got back, I was actually the West Tennessee vice commander during that time. And some of the strongest American Legion posts in the district at that time was here in Martin and Dresden and Gleason. Gleason had a very strong American Legion presence. And so there was 3 people, I guess, had announced, one from South Fulton, whom I didn't know. Bill Tootin, who was a chamberman here in Weakley County, decided to run. There were 2 guys from Paris, Mose Keenan, who was on the Paris City Council, and a guy named Billy Owens, who was, I think, in the insurance business up there. But anyway, that was a flotarial district. It was O'Brien, Weakley, and Henry County, and those 3 counties shared 2 seats. I don't have to tell you who the other seat was held by. A guy named Ned McWhorter, okay. Ned had married my dad's first cousin, Betty, and they later got divorced. But Ned was very close to our family, and our family very close, of course, to him and Mike and Linda. But anyway, they would be at the Davy Crockett Hotel, and we would go to the Davy Crockett Hotel coffee shop after church. And Ned would be in there on Sundays, and I'd talk. He said, you might consider running for the House. He was a speaker at the time. And so I qualified on the last day of May, I think it was. You had to qualify 60 days before the August primary. And campaigned and won the primary, and then that was it.
So Ned McWhorter encouraged you to go to the seat.
He said, you know, think about it. He said,
how close was it? How close was that first race?
It wasn't very close. Mm-hmm. I got over I think 60% of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. We got it. I had a lot of help.
Mm-hmm. So when you became a state representative, your whole life kind of changed because you now have become a civilian to become a state representative, and then everybody wants a piece of John Tanner because they all have something they want from the state legislature.
It was, his legislature was good in the sense that I was just concerned about how much time it would take because I was practicing law, and time is, as Abraham Lincoln said, that's what the lawyer has to sell, basically, is advice and time. But anyway, but Ned told me, he said, you know what, 3 or 4 days a week from January to maybe April, and then I'd come home in April, wouldn't go back to Nashville until next following January.
It's not like that anymore.
Not like that at all anymore, but we would do our business and then go home, and I wouldn't go back to Nashville till the next following January. The legislature was a lot different than Congress in the sense, Paul, that the legislature basically was not Democrat and Republican back in those days. It was country boys against the 4 major cities trying to figure out how they cut the state pie up, and that we wouldn't get left out because we didn't have many people in our in where we came from. And we butted with the East Tennessee rural legislators who were primarily Republicans, and the West Tennessee Democrats on we almost never disagreed with that. And that was because in Tennessee we're pretty homogeneous. In Congress you have much more diversity, I say.
You've just joined us. We're talking with Congressman John Tanner. He's been retired for a number of years, but what he is still doing is he is working in Washington to try to make things better for people. Let me jump here for just a second. When did you know that Ned Ray McWhorter was going to run for governor?
1984, and he ran in 86, but he was laying the groundwork. We would, when I was there, he would call me, and we'd go out to a place called Sperry's for dinner at night when we both could do it. He was laying the groundwork. He was thinking about it in 84, and he told me about it, of course.
You were a little younger than he, and you were was that kind of a big brother relationship, or was it a father relationship, or was it just a family relationship? Maybe none of those touched it, but
probably a combination of all the above. Yeah, I mean, he was almost. He wasn't directly kin to us, but he was by in-law. I'd known him virtually all my life.
Well, he became what we used to call Fats Everett. Fats Everett was the congressman. Yep. The only other congressman in Obion County is you and Congressman Everett.
And one more.
I'm waiting. Go ahead.
David Crockett.
I was going to see if you were going to jump in it.
Yeah. So, in fact, out at Discovery Park, they've got a little building out there called Freedom Hall. And they've got a room of my stuff that I had in my office in Washington, and then a room with pictures of Fats Everett, and then a room for David Crockett, because that's the 3 members from Obion County. A
lot of people don't even know that.
Yeah.
And I was wondering to see if you were jumping in on it as well.
Yeah.
So becoming a state representative, that's a lot of work. If you're doing it right.
It was. Yeah. It was after we adjourned in, say, April or whatever, we didn't have all these committees that meet all year long.
And special sessions.
We didn't have that. And the legislature was not as intrusive on the executive as it is now. I mean, the governor literally pretty much ran things. I mean, the legislature made the laws, but we didn't.
As a congressman retired, and I'll come back to that in a couple of moments, you're still pretty relevant with everybody around here. And there's not many people that don't know the name of Congressman John Tanner. And I know that must make you feel pretty good, because when you walk into a restaurant, you're probably going to see somebody that you know, or they know you.
Well, yeah, people have been awfully nice to us through the years. I mean, we've been very fortunate. I had a lot of help along the way in the legislature, and then, of course, in Congress, we had I had as fine of people helping me as anybody could ask for.
Let me ask, what was the piece of legislature in the House of Representatives in Nashville we're talking about? What is it? What was it that you helped to initiate and to bring it home to Weakley and Obion County and Lake County and so forth?
Two things. One, a 4-lane road. It was a big deal to get a 4-lane road from here, from Union City to Martin, back in those days.
Now it's old 431, or the Martin Union City Highway, as we would call it.
But that was a big deal. By the way, it's in pretty rough shape. I wish somebody, the legislature, would get the state secretary or commissioner of transportation's attention and try to do something about it.
It was in good shape when you had it.
Well, you had we did. It was.
It was perfect.
You had the governor from Weakley County. You had Milton Hamilton from Obion County, who was a figure in the state senate, and then what little bit I could add to it. We had some good roads. The other thing I did in the legislature is I formed a Reelfoot Lake Task Force, Paul, with Mr. Jones' help.
We're talking about the late Congressman Ed Jones.
Ed Jones. And we formed, we got a state law passed, Reelfoot Lake Task Force. At that time, Reelfoot Lake being an oxbow lake on the Mississippi River, that is, it's cut off from the Mississippi River. It doesn't get washed out like other lakes at night. And so it was filling up with silt. And so we got a task force put together, and Lamar Alexander was governor, and we got Mr. Jones signed Joe Hill to the task force, and all of us together got the state and federal government to pass legislation. We actually built a lot of siltation catch basins. And
the average person wouldn't know what you're talking about, but it's big.
It's a big deal to save Reelfoot Lake in terms of keeping the silt, which is when the silt goes into Reelfoot, it never comes out because it's cut off from the Mississippi River. There's no current. There's nothing to wash it out, so to speak. And so we thought it was worth saving from the standpoint of economics alone, with all of the fishermen that come down here from Illinois and other places up north, and then the duck hunting and goose hunting that takes place. It's a big economic draw for this area.
Do you still hunt?
No. I'm not mad enough at the ducks to get up at 4 o'clock anymore.
So you had that opportunity when Congressman Ed Jones made a statement that he was retiring.
Uh-huh.
Larry Bates challenged him, I think, on his last run. And then John Tanner, did he say to you, did Congressman Jones say to you, I want you to succeed me in the 8th District, Congressional District here in West Tennessee and a portion of Memphis?
Maybe not in those words, but Joe Hill, who was his district director, and I had become very close friends.
Can I say this about him first?
Sure.
I don't think anybody is any smarter than Joe Hill when it comes to knowing things that had taken place across the district. Might be the smartest guy around.
I remember I was running in 1988, and Jackson's son was covering the race pretty closely, and they wrote an article about me and about who was helping me and so forth. It said Joe Hill knows everybody in the 8th Congressional District. And it wasn't a short time later, Joe and I were going somewhere to some campaign event, and I said, look at that fellow over there, Joe. Who is that? And Joe said, I don't know. And I said, well, Jackson's son said you knew everybody in the 8th District. What do you mean you don't know? But anyway, he was instrumental in helping. And
well, he was with Congressman Jones for many years.
Yeah. He had been with Mr. Jones, I think, since 1970. 72 maybe. Mm-hmm. So Mr. Jones, of course, took Fats Everett's place after Mr. Everett died in office at the VA hospital in Nashville in January of 1971.
You were talking about the influence that Ned McWhorter had on you.
Yeah.
What would you say that he inspired you to do what you do?
Well, Ned would, one of his pet phrases was, let's ease along. And what that meant was, instead of getting into a shouting match or Democrat, Republican, left, right, whatever, he said, let's ease along and look for some common ground, some compromise, something that we can get worked out. And that pretty much became my philosophy about public policy. Let's ease along here and not throw rocks at each other. Let's see if what we can do to work something out that everybody can be comfortable with.
Were you at any time challenged you to, and I'm not using this physically, but people that are sometimes, they don't like politicians and they get pretty upset and they say ugly things, and you're trying to serve the community and so forth. Do you ever have anybody that you just kind of wish they'd gone away?
What do you think? No. Yeah, I mean, they were fairly few and far between. I think we had two physical, maybe somewhat credible threats against me when I was in Congress for those 22 years, which is okay. I mean, I wasn't scared, but I mean, yeah, you have some people out there, and that's why it's so important, Paul, that people in public office try to temper the emotion that runs high on some issues. It's you very seldom make the right decision when you're irate or upset about something, and that's why you have to be careful of the words you use and the things you say when you hold the public trust.
We'll have more with Congressman John Tanner in our next program next week to hear more about this. Congressman, thank you for this time. And next weekend, you're going to get to hear the other half of things going on with Congressman Tanner, and also some of the things that have been going on in Washington that perhaps you have never heard. Thank you so much for joining us for this time, Congressman Tanner. We'll be right back with the opportunity to hear some more about some of the stories, but more importantly, some of the things that we are dealing with in Washington today. Paul Tinkle, pre-recorded here on Thunderbolt Radio.
You've been listening to 30 Minutes, a community affairs program on Thunderbolt Radio. You can listen to this broadcast and others anytime by visiting thunderboltradio.com and following the Thunderbolt Radio and Digital YouTube page. Thanks for listening.